Hey there, YouTube. Welcome to Monday's edition of The Breakfast Club. I'm Got That Funk. I'd like to thank you for joining me. A little over 15 years ago, I think it is, George Bush did the very first ever drone strike on a suspected terrorist. It was in Yemen and in 2002. I know that. And yeah, it was apparently just one or two people who were reported to be Al Qaeda sympathizers or Al Qaeda operatives or whatever who were going across the desert in a 4x4, and then death came down to them out from the sky. At the time, I was very active on my blog, and I used to write about how I thought it was extremely wrong that this was done, because in my opinion it is an extrajudicial killing, i.e. you're taking somebody out without any due process whatsoever. Also, you're going on basically what can best be described as a hunch that you've got the right people. There might be some very reliable intelligence that tells you that you've got certain people in your sights, but it really depends on how you define reliable intelligence, and also how well you know it's those specific people and not someone nearby who you're targeting. When you're targeting someone from the sky, you need really good intel on the ground to have any semblance of accuracy whatsoever. So, all those factors need to be taken into account. Now, that was the very first drone strike against a terrorist suspect that I can recall. And I did object to it, as I say, on the grounds of extrajudicial killing, as well as, you're taking an awful lot on trust. And because that was sort of in the middle of the desert, there was really no chances for collateral damage. And I think at the time, the Bush administration and the war hawks within, or chicken hawks as people used to call them, within the administration, I think they were sort of testing out the water to see what international reaction would be to this kind of killing without due process, and whether or not it was going to be considered a war crime or legal under international law. And the fact is, there was a little bit of outrage, but there wasn't no major hullabaloo, and certainly there's not been any effort to prosecute people responsible for these types of actions since then. And George Bush, from that moment on, began what was to become known as the drone war. And when Barack Obama inherited the presidency from George Bush in 2009, I was one of those who voted for Barack Obama in 2008 under the mistaken belief that Barack Obama was going to decrease U.S. military interventionism. And to the extent that he drew down forces in Iraq to a pretty large degree, and Afghanistan to varying degrees, depending on what part of Barack Obama's term you want to talk about. But we're obviously still in both places to a small degree, and that's unforgivable as far as I'm concerned. I'm very disappointed with Barack Obama about that. I'm also disappointed with Barack Obama over Guantanamo Bay. But my biggest disappointment with Barack Obama was that he not only didn't end the drone war, but he increased it significantly. In his final year as President of the United States, Barack Obama authorized more than 26,000 bombs to be dropped in the drone war. Our drones are operating in 7 different countries around the world. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that all of those countries are Muslim majority countries. But the countries that the drone war operates in, if you're dropping more than 26,000 bombs a year, if you break it down, let's just round it down to 26,000, nice and easy number to work with for a year. That works out to about 1,000 bombs every 2 weeks, okay? That's something like up to 71 bombs per day, which works out to about 10 bombs per day per country on the bomb list. 10 bombs a day, 365 days a year, for year after year after year. What must it be like to live in a country where drones operate over your skies, where you can't go outside without looking up to see if there's a drone coming your direction? Surely that's living in a state of terror by any reasonable definition. And I don't think that that's okay. I don't think it's okay that the United States has drones dropping bombs on other countries without actually declaring war on those countries. And we're using the most flimsy legal pretense to get away with this in the first place, that it was somehow authorized by Congress in their vote to proceed with the war on terror. I have to say that I've got a lot of sympathy with comments Jeremy Corbyn made here in the UK recently, where he called into question, our foreign policy and whether or not it exacerbates terrorism. Now, here's the thing. Theresa May and Boris Johnson were quick to jump on the tired old fucking hash of saying, hey, he's trying to absolve the terrorists of their responsibility for what they did. And Jeremy Corbyn was quite careful to say, no, of course terrorists are absolutely responsible for the reprehensible acts that they commit. I agree. That does not divorce us from the responsibility of looking at our own foreign policy and asking whether or not we, either directly or indirectly, however you want to define it personally, are contributing to the problem that we're trying to solve. Because how would it feel like to live in a country where these drones are coming down? Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan. You don't know if you're safe. You don't feel safe. And I think it would be very easy to recruit people who wanted to fight against the powers that were responsible for doing it. I don't think it's a really big leap of imagination to say that the drone war specifically increases terrorist recruitment. It must be very easy to make a case to people who don't know if their walls are going to be caving in on a daily basis that the United States is their enemy. I don't think we have to be their enemy, but as long as we're dropping bombs on them, how can we blame them for thinking of us like that? It's an acknowledged fact that over 80% of all the people killed in drone strikes are civilians, innocent people who were not targets of the strikes. That, at least, was the case under Barack Obama. Now, with the presidency of Donald Trump, it was reported early on in Trump's presidency that he increased drone strikes by 400%. If that's true, that's not 1,000 bombs every 2 weeks. That's 1,000 bombs every 3.5 days. That's almost 1,000 bombs. That's 250 bombs a day, nearly. Please, how can that be okay? How can that not exacerbate the antipathy that people in these countries will feel towards not only the United States, but the West in general for not doing anything to stop us? I think it's a fair question to ask how much our foreign policy contributes to the problems that it's trying to fix. Ending terrorism in the world isn't going to happen overnight. It might not ever be ended in the sense that it never happens again. But certainly, since George Bush declared the war on terrorism after the September 11 attacks, you cannot argue that terrorism has gotten less. Terrorism has gotten worse. And we have to ask, is that because of how we've been dealing with it up to this point? If you think it is, let me know, elaborate on your thoughts. If you think it's not, if you think that it has nothing to do with us because, hey, we don't target civilians, if we kill civilians, it's just an accident and they shouldn't really, they mind or whatever, explain your thinking to me because I'll answer that right now. Do you think the victims, the survivors, in the families of the victims who die as collateral damage, do you think they give a damn whether we intended to kill their family members or not? Do you think it makes 1 ounce of difference to their sadness, their grief, their unimaginable pain, that everyone they know in their family just got snuffed out by accident? Oh, it was by accident. They didn't mean to do it. So therefore what? I'm not going to be sad or angry? Put yourself in that place, and I think you know that it's absurd to make that kind of contention. So I would say that intent absolutely matters. It matters whether or not you intend to kill civilians, but ultimately it only matters from the point of view of administration of the policy. It doesn't matter to the victims. It won't matter to the victims. And I think it makes it very easy for people to use our actions and the deaths of civilians and innocent people to create more terrorists. We're only making the situation worse for ourselves. And the first place to start is by ending the drone war. I don't think it can be rationally justified. It might not even be legal. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I look forward to a vigorous discussion. Hopefully, Sister Danger will be here in the Breakfast Club for a video for you tomorrow. And I look forward to Seeing you again next week. Until then, may all your ups and downs be ups.